Eternal greetings and welcome to another ghoulishly delightful episode of Halloween horror stories from the Real Estate Guys. Things that went terribly wrong in real estate, but the amazing lessons we can learn. It's another fantastic episode today on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
For investors, timberland has become the symbol of safety. Global tropical timber demand continues to surge as the world's population increases. The need for managed, sustainable timber production forests has never been greater. When stock markets crash, trees keep growing. Direct ownership of fully managed tropical timberland acreage is now available to accredited investors. Prime valuable hardwood groves close to the beautiful Costa Rican border generate and maintain superior long-term wealth. Qualified, accredited investors should email timber@realestateguysradio.com for more information. Consider visiting our forest plantations to see for yourself. Email timber@realestateguysradio.com. This announcement does not constitute either an offer to sell securities or a solicitation of an offer to purchase. Offering made by prospectus only. For more information, email timber@realestateguysradio.com.
Stop for a moment. Why are you listening to this show? Are you dreaming of a bigger, brighter financial future? More personal freedom to live life on your own terms? What if there was just one skill that could make it happen? There is. Sales. Robert Kiyosaki says every entrepreneur must be good at sales. It's true for investors too. Sales is how you attract money, people, and opportunities. Sales is the skill used to negotiate deals and lead your team. Sales skills are essential to success. The good news is, it's a learnable skill. The great news is, we've created a 2-day interactive workshop to teach those skills to you. Make plans today to attend How to Win Funds and Influence People, Mastering the Art of Financial Selling. For dates and details, send an email to sales@realestateguysradio.com or visit realestateguysradio.com and look under events. Gain the skills you need to succeed. Email sales@realestateguysradio.com or look under the events tab at realestateguysradio.com.
Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program, a spooktacular show for you today. It's our annual rendition of Halloween horror stories. I'm Robert Helms. Joining me, the co-host, financial strategist, and all-around scary guy, Russell Gray.
Hey, Robert.
And also the man we call the godfather of real estate, but investing in 7 different decades, Bob Helms, back with us.
Gee, it doesn't seem that long.
Well, that's one of the things, right? The longer you're in real estate, the more lessons you learn. And so if this is your first time on Halloween Horror Stories, here's what you need to know. We're going to hear about all kinds of things that happen to real-life investors, and none of it was good. But what is great is the lessons that you can learn. When something goes bad in your real estate investing career, which it will, you have to stand up and be strong. And we've seen a lot of that going around the country with things that are happening. And you can focus on the negative and you can wallow for a couple of days, but then you got to step up. So today, it's really about learning what's happening in the real world.
Yeah, I think the thing is that, especially if you're brand new, when you get into real estate investing, and if you've gone to one of these hype you up seminars or however you choose to get into it, you go in as an optimist. You go in believing everything's going to be great, and then you run into a brick wall, something goes sideways, and you think, man, either real estate is bad or I'm such a loser. And neither one of those are the correct response, And so we love the fact that we have all these people in our world that are willing to come be honest and humble and say, hey, here's the way it is in the real world.
Right.
And the fact is there is no business, there's no activity, there's nothing you do in life where you get a pass from hard times. And in fact, the best lessons, as we always say, are from the hard times. And so the key is you got to get the lesson. So this episode is really just all about being honest about what happened, looking at it and saying, okay, what can we carry forward, and giving everyone listening the opportunity to live vicariously and get the message at a very steep discount.
Vicariously is the important word. It's not necessary for you to get punched in the nose to realize that you don't want to be when you see your neighbor punched in the nose. So we try to get the lessons, and what's so amazing is there's always new lessons. The more, the better.
First time we did this was just us talking about our tales of woe, and it started when we were doing presentations on the case studies on real estate deals that went bad, and it was around in October. We thought, well, we'll call these Halloween horror stories, and we would do them in a live event for 3 hours, and as that happened year after year after year, it went from being us talking about all of our missteps to a lot of folks sharing, and there was some group therapy involved, and then we'd take kind of the best of those stories and talk about them on the radio. Well, now transition all these years later, and now we have listeners who throughout the year say, hey, I had a challenge and here's what happened. So we've assembled a great group of folks. When we come back, you'll hear Halloween horror stories this year on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
Live nationwide, you're listening to the Real Estate Guys. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com.
Welcome to the blood-curdling edition of Halloween Horror Stories for 2017. We've got lots of terrifying tales, and the first one is called Drugs, Guns, and Squatters. Let's meet Peter and Monique Halm. Oh my goodness, tell us your tale of woe. What happened?
Well, we have a multi-unit apartment building, C-class, and it's been quite a horror story. So, and the issue hasn't been that we had a fire in one of the townhomes and that.
Or the landscaper who was shot and went to hospital.
Or the gun that was pulled on our on-site manager.
Or the homeless people who set up in one of the empty apartments for Valentine's Day and threw rose petals all around and syringes.
That wasn't the problem. No. It's even worse than that. What's the Halloween horror story?
So the Halloween horror story was really the property management company that was running the property. And we thought we did our due diligence on this property manager, hiring the biggest and best in the state, or so we thought. And the numbers started telling a different story as we got the property and we just saw things going down. Well, as we saw the numbers going down, super nice people. They were lovely, really pleasant. And we tried to change some of the staff up, but the issues were still there. And it wasn't until we finally, after 8 months, put in another property manager that we found out some of the horrors of what was really going on the property.
So all kidding aside, some of those challenges that manifested were actually just symptoms, perhaps, of the bigger problem, which is property management. Now, when you went in and you looked at the property, you thought, hey, we need a manager, and you interviewed managers. I remember when you were going through that process. How is it that, in hindsight, you think that they showed up well on the job interview, if you will, but then the rubber didn't meet the road?
Right. It was all to do with their policies and standards, and they were not being followed. So the people at the top had their system set up, and nothing was really being followed.
Aha.
I also don't think that the people at the top were looking at what was going on below, and they weren't taking responsibility. So they could see the delinquency, they could see the numbers going down, and there were no steps being taken until we were asking. And then when they left and we got a new property management company, got new people in, we saw none of the screening criteria was happening. The people that were putting in place were not properly screened, they were not paying, there were criminal issues. So the people weren't paying, and then the property management company wasn't paying our bills. We had incredible levels of aged payables. They were not handling maintenance issues that they needed to. We found leaks that had been going on for months, bathtubs that were about to fall through the ceiling, all sorts of terrible conditions that hadn't been addressed. And it's not because we didn't have the money, it's not because we didn't have the willingness to do it, they just were not handling it or taking care of it. I'm not sure what they were doing, but they were not doing their jobs.
Not the stuff they were supposed to. All right, so fast forward to today, you've got new management in, and how's it going?
It's going very well. We're seeing that these people are passionate about what they're doing. They're a smaller boutique management company. The only thing is, for us, they're discovering all the little issues still. It's tough for us, but it's really good to know that they're reporting directly to us what they're finding, and they're fixing things up. And they're doing everything we want. They're doing everything we need, and we're getting what we originally wanted.
Awesome. Well, here's one of the great things is that these things do manifest over time. So 8 months might seem like a long time, but in a big apartment complex, it does take time. Luckily, you were paying attention to the numbers. The numbers were telling a story, a different story than the nice people, but that was the wake-up call. What are the lessons that you learned? In hindsight, what maybe should you have paid attention to, or what, now that you look back, what were the things that were showing the cracks in the dam?
One of the things that we needed to pay more attention to is the delinquency rate. We weren't looking closely enough, or more focused on the occupancy numbers and less focused on the delinquency. And another issue was looking at when people had come in. So this property management company had this building before we bought it. So we kept them on with the building, and they had loaded in a bunch of new tenants right before we bought it. And there were some sketchy things that if we had looked closer at the rent rolls, when did people come in? How long had they been there? We would have discovered that better.
Well, this is interesting. We've had a Halloween horror story many years ago, which was, and we've all heard this scenario. You buy an apartment building and the previous owner or manager stuffed it full of tenants. So they had a nice, healthy rent roll, but in reality, they weren't either legitimate or they weren't paying as much as they should or whatever the case was. But in this case, you would think if the company that held it currently wanted to stay, it wouldn't be in their best interest to stuff it full of non-paying tenants. I mean, it needs to look like it's going to perform, but they were vying for the gig, and you considered, do we keep them or not, and thought, well, we might as well see how they can do, and obviously now time has played out and you figured it out. So anything else in hindsight that you went back and went, man, we should have seen this earlier, because we want to make sure we get every lesson out of this?
Probably one of the biggest issues was maintenance and deferred maintenance. There was a lot of deferred maintenance that we did not discover. We came in there and we actually had the property management bring their own team in to go through everything instead of getting a third-party property inspector. It was a way of cost cutting, which we paid the price afterwards.
Well, they were essentially inspecting their own work, right? So.
They were inspecting their own work, and we found that over the last 6 or 8 months that a lot of the patchwork, especially in plumbing, had not been done to code. And, in an older building, a lot of times patchwork is very temporary. And we've had ongoing issues that could have been fixed initially the right way, but we're not.
Well, obviously, anytime we have a vendor or a relationship that doesn't work out, we want to look for somebody else. And in this case, you've made an interesting comparison from a big company to more boutique company. Talk about that part of it. Is that just a coincidence, or is there something that has attracted you to a smaller, more nimble company?
We found this company through another investor in the market who had a similar experience, not with the property management company we were with, but another big firm. Same thing. He bought the property, brought in this property management company, and they were running it into the ground. And then he found the property management company we now have, and they helped turn around his building. They have a different model, much sleeker, lower expenses. They're lean and nimble, and they do a better job for less money. He recommended them highly to us. Also, one of the listing brokers that we worked with, we saw that he recommended them as well on Google. And so we interviewed them. We were very impressed, and that's how we found them. It wasn't necessarily that we were looking for a boutique firm. They weren't on our radar at all. It was through our relationship with another owner in the marketplace.
That's a great lesson in itself, that always get referrals from people that have earned the right to have an opinion. It's one thing if, a guy in my leads group does that, versus, hey, this team turned my building around. That's the kind of referral you want. All right, so this hasn't dissuaded you in any way, having a Halloween horror story happen. You guys solved the problem. You fixed it. Anything else that you think that listeners should know when this kind of thing happens? Talk about maybe the psychology of it and how, now that you've been through it, how you feel.
Well, it was hard to actually change property management companies, even with the issues that we were seeing. And we didn't see a lot of the issues until after they'd left. But like I said, they seem like really nice people.
Yeah.
So we liked them personally. So saying goodbye was challenging, but we had investors to look out for, and I'm glad we didn't let our personal feelings about any of the individuals get in the way, and we did what we had to do. But it was definitely challenging to let them go. But I think one of the things that helped us then and now is that we've been in the habit of having a weekly check-in with the property management companies. We get a report on the numbers every week, and we talk about whatever is happening in the building, extraordinary things that were going on. A lot of which the previous property management company was not sharing with us, but still having that weekly check-in did help us maybe notice the issues a little sooner than we might otherwise have. And it also helps us know that this new company is really on top of things.
And I just wanted to add, it's not the amount of time that a property manager puts into your property. The previous property management company, our immediate contact there was probably working 16 hours a day, working crazy hours, and we had a lot of contact with that person, endless phone calls, emails, but it seemed like there was too much work in the business, in the weeds, and not enough on the overall picture of improvement.
All right, good stuff. Well, thanks for sharing your misery, and hopefully the listeners can learn something from that. Always great to talk to you guys.
Thank you. Same here.
Thank you, Robert.
There's Peter and Monique Holm. We'll have more with Halloween horror stories when we come back. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your spooky host, Robert Helms. Hey, it's Robert Helms. Thanks so much for listening to the show today. I want to personally invite you to come see an amazing real estate market that combines excellent cash flow, offshore diversification, and what we affectionately call lifestyle investing. Come join me from November 10th to the 13th in the beautiful country of Belize. The Real Estate Guys have been bringing investors to Belize for more than 10 years now, and our discovery trip is designed to show you the market like nobody else can. Sure, Belize is breathtakingly beautiful. The people are wonderful, and wait till you taste the food. But the real opportunity is the real estate investment potential. 2016 was the biggest year in tourism Belize has ever witnessed, and this year is looking even better. How does that translate to real estate investment? Well, that's what you have to come see. There are all types of opportunities in Belize when it comes to real estate investing, including both long-term and short-term rentals, commercial and retail triple net properties, business opportunities, land acquisition, development, agriculture, and more. And as the only country in Latin America with English as its official language, it's easy to understand the law, property rights are strong, and contracts are written in English. And in Ambergris Caye, a unique situation exists where demand for rentals continues to outstrip supply, creating a compelling environment for investors. So come see for yourself. Join me November 10th through 13th in Ambergris Caye, Belize, as we study the market, learn about the sustainable drivers, and tour lots of beautiful real estate. And like all of our field trips, there are no properties for sale during the weekend. Rather, you'll meet local providers that will help educate you about the market so you can follow up with them after the trip if the market is interesting to you. That ball is always in your court. You'll receive their contact details, but they won't receive yours unless you give it to them. You've heard about Belize and the Real Estate Guys for all these years. Now come see what all the excitement is about. Plus, these trips are small and we'll have lots of time over meals and activities to talk about all things real estate. To get the details, go to the website at realestateguysradio.com and click on events where you'll find the Belize Discovery Trips. Once you register, you'll get information about our group hotel rates as well as travel details. So join me in Belize, November 10th through 13th. It's a beautiful country with lots of amazing possibilities, and the only thing missing is you. Go to realestateguysradio.com under events. I look forward to seeing you in beautiful Belize. Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio show. This week, a morbid mausoleum of monster case studies we call Halloween horror stories. Things that go wrong, but the lessons we can learn. This next unnerving tale is called The Trailers and the Trees. Let's meet Tyler Gunter. How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic.
I know you're fantastic today, but I know it hasn't always been that way.
It has not.
Your appearance on Halloween
right.
horror stories. So tell us what happened.
So we had a freak early year snowstorm. We didn't have a chance for all the leaves to fall from the trees, and we've got a park, a mobile home community that has about 45 full mature trees in it, and about 14 of them fell on top of our homes and power lines. And
oh my gosh!
we had tenants that were locked in their house because we had 100 pounds worth of tree branch laying in front of their front door, and they couldn't get out. And just one of those things. We never thought to check to see the condition of the trees. When we walked the property, we had big, beautiful, lovely green trees, and we didn't know that they were dry rotted all the way through up the middle. So
wow, until the storm comes through.
right.
Well, tell us what happened. How did you fix that and mediate and all that?
So it was quite difficult because we'd lost power to the entire area. We lost heat, we lost everything. So we had to worry about freezing pipes. We had to worry. So we had to call in and get rental generators on trailers and get heat to homes, electric heat into all these things. We had arborists that came out the next day and got a lot of the big chunks that were still laying around. But we had to get a couple of guys. Myself, we ran out there with chainsaws and started cutting people free of the homes. And we lost some roofs. We had a fire that started off of the back of one trailer, and so fire department came, and it was really fantastic because we got to see the community come together too. I mean, we had a lot of support through the small community we're in, people coming in, seeing what they could do to help, housing some people that were displaced for a little bit, and taking care of things. So it turned out to be a really great, wow, what a wonderful community we live in, but it's not the way I wanted to learn about inspecting trees.
Right. So, and with the storm, was there snow on the ground still?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we had about 2.5 feet of snow throughout the entire city.
Wow.
People couldn't move. We couldn't get vehicles through things. It was a complete shutdown. And then 2 days later, it was 70 degrees and beautiful. And
wow. And at this park, are the homes owned by you guys? Or are they owned by the residents, or is it a mix?
It's a mixed blend. Yeah, we own the majority of them, but some of the residents' homes were damaged. Mostly our homes. Thankfully, we weren't didn't do too much damage to some of the other ones. We had trees that fell on cars. That was a problem.
And what about insurance?
So insurance covered little bits of it, but it was one of those deals. We were brand new at it. We didn't have history of tree trimming and maintenance because we had just stepped into it. The old owner said it had been done, but didn't have any documentation. So unfortunately, insurance did not step in and take the brunt of it. We had to form it together and get things taken care of.
All right. Well, not a brilliant story for sure. My goodness. But obviously what we get when something like this happens are the lessons. So what were the lessons for you, and what will you take going forward?
It's so easy to get an arborist in there and just a real quick inspection. We have a lot of trees, but it would have taken maybe 45 minutes to an hour for them to come through and do a good visual analysis. They can do some testing on the wood itself and just taking a look at some of the bark. They know immediately if the tree's got problems, if it doesn't have problems. After the event, we had them come through and did a lot of trimming and getting things back. We have beautiful, healthy trees now.
Right.
And it wouldn't have taken but a little bit of time and a small amount of cash to get things up to par prior to this.
But how would you know, right?
I have no idea. They look beautiful. They were beautiful trees.
Well, we appreciate the story because now any listener has no excuse for not checking out the trees if this happens to them. So, my goodness. Well, Tyler, thanks for sharing. And sorry about the Halloween horror story, but glad to hear you got some good lessons out of it.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting me share.
Absolutely. That's Tyler Gunter. It's Halloween Horror Stories, things that go wrong and the lessons we can learn. Our next hair-raising howl is called The Money Pit. Let's meet real estate investor and syndicator Felicia how are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Well, thanks for being here today and for having the guts to share your Halloween horror story. Oh my goodness, tell us what happened.
Well, back in about 2005, we had just started our real estate investing career and had bought probably 2 or 3 houses, and then all of a sudden had this chance to buy this portfolio of 8, 2 separate purchases of 4 properties. And the way our broker sold it to us was that 4 of them are up, they're rented, they're good to go. The other 4 are not so great. You can pull money out of the first 4 you buy to fix the second 4. It'll be fine. And it looked good. I was actually out of town, and the first 4 went great. Everything went fine. The second 4, we went through I had a partner. We went through the purchase, and then I found out that my partner actually hadn't looked at anything. So over the next several months, we worked really hard to get those 4 up and rented, and we're in C or D class neighborhoods where every time you'd put stuff out to rehab, it would get stolen. Time went on, and we were just sinking more and more money into these 4 properties. Ultimately, I said, how much do we need to get it done? And it was $50,000. I went to the bank. It's like, I need $50,000 to get these done. Got $50,000. I was surprised. Got that $50,000. Then it was gone, and they weren't ready.
Wow.
It was we still were in the same position. So I had to decide if I was going to keep digging that hole or what was going to happen there, and decided not to keep digging that hole.
Not to put good money after bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, a lot of things there, right? What were the major lessons for you?
Due diligence, number one, the huge, big lesson. Understanding and knowing my partner better. So that was just my partner's heart wasn't in doing what we were doing. So,
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it, and I just didn't know. So those are the two big ones for me. And then I'm happy I stopped throwing money at it when I did. Maybe I should have sooner, but it was that one last shot to go. But also learned you got to know when to stop.
Yeah, no, great lessons there. Anytime you have a partnership and you have somebody else, a big part of that is figuring out roles and responsibilities. And somebody has to be good at everything that needs to be done. So if it's not you, then you need to find partners that are. And sometimes we find great partners who are wonderful people, but they don't necessarily have the corresponding skill set. For you, you're a busy doctor and you travel, and so you probably would need a partner who'd be more on the ground. But folks listening, partnerships aren't bad. It's just finding the right partner that fits.
Correct. I'm still quick for the partner, but as one of my partners now said, who's a veteran, he said, I'll be my paranoid Navy veteran self while I'm talking to everybody. And I was like, that's what I got to do. Just pay attention.
Not a bad idea there. So let's talk about the scope of work. What would you do differently if you found an opportunity like this, which sounded like a great opportunity for a lot of reasons? What would be some practical steps now to approach the problem if you had it today?
Today, I would, number one, have a general contractor go through and look at everything and give me a good idea of what it was going to cost, as well as a reasonable time frame to get it done. We know that's sometimes difficult to do. Make sure I'm well capitalized to be able to make it happen, and then have somebody keeping track of the general contractor.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with getting a bank loan to do some of the rehab. That's great. The problem is when you borrow money but not enough money, and then it's still not done, you don't get to the finish line.
Right.
Well, that was some time ago, and I know you've taken those lessons, and thanks for sharing today, and continued success to you in real estate investing.
Thank you.
It's Halloween Horror Stories at the Real Estate Guys, something we do every October. Here's a repulsive potion we call Fire and Ice. Let's meet seasoned real estate investor and broker Randy Hubbs. Hey, Randy, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, Robert.
Absolutely. You've been in real estate a long time, doing all kinds of stuff, multifamily, single family, resort property. But it doesn't always go perfectly.
Yeah, this was actually happened a while back, but it was in the middle of the winter or toward the early part of March, and the weather was pretty severe, and I was still working my job at that time, so I happened to be up, and my phone rang at 5:30 in the morning, and my property manager said, "I'm about 5 minutes out. I'll be picking you up. We have a problem." So we drove down to a row of duplexes that we owned to come around the corner and to find ice all over the roads and fire trucks everywhere. Uh-oh. And yeah, we had a major fire that occurred, and it was kind of an interesting scenario. There was a school night, and yet there was a big birthday party going on till 2 a.m. And one of the residents' son was a 15-year-old boy who was going back into his back bedroom to smoke a cigarette in a non-smoking unit. And of course, when he got done, he threw the cigarette out the window, which landed on the mattress, which then he went back to the party, only to find out later that this big, huge fire was going up into the attic, and they hear they're partying away, and there's a big fire over the top of their head. And one of the neighbors came home from work and saw it going on. They worked on getting everybody out, and but the neighbors, the people on the other side, the other duplex, they actually got up, and once they saw, that the fire was on the other side, they went back to bed.
Wow.
So the police ended up kicking in their door and getting them out. But yeah, it was one of those situations that, comedy of errors, and there were some pretty good lessons that we learned out of that.
Well, that's the point, right? It's not just that bad stuff does happen. Real estate is imperfect. But when it does, rather than just throw up your hands and be upset, get the lesson. What are some of the lessons? Take us through it.
Sure. Well, one of the things that we've been really vigilant about is making sure our renters have renter's insurance.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately for them, I think that's the first thing was, these people were kicked to the curb. You've got a constructive eviction that now takes place. They could get their items out. They only had a couple of days to remove them, but they also only got help from the Red Cross for 2 days, and they were on the street. There's also other advantages to that as well, because this was caused by one of their, residents violating policies. Our insurance company could have come after the company that they have their renter's insurance with and maybe mitigated some of the claims on our side of the fence there. So that's certainly a huge one there. The other one is having items that are leaning up against your building, like mattresses. My manager does a great job of checking out the buildings and driving by, but every now and then you really need to go into that backyard, because if it's not a mattress, another big problem is if people stack wood, they'll stack tires, and of course if it's wood, you can have wood destroying insects like termites and those kinds of things that have now an easy access to the building. So those are some things that we could have done a little better job at. I guess some of the things that we did right, we're looking at it in retrospect also, was the fact that we had loss of rents insurance, because there was 6 months of downtime on that, in which we were still getting our rent checks. Had we not had that, that could have been a real problem, because we were making a mortgage payment on the property.
Well, let's talk for a minute about insurance, because this is important. And as real estate investors, we want to make sure, obviously, our asset is insured. But as we've heard on a couple other Halloween horror stories, it doesn't mean that you're 100% covered because of, fault and what's covered and exclusions and so forth. So the first thing is that generally, as a landlord, you're going to get an insurance policy that covers your building and your property and anything that could go wrong to make you whole. But that doesn't include your tenant's contents. So the idea of helping a tenant understand, one, how easy it is to get renter's insurance, and two, how inexpensive. Renter's insurance is typically not very expensive, but most renters don't have much they would consider, being valuable enough to insure. But for a few dollars a month, they can insure their contents, and you hate to have them learn that the hard way. But as the landlord, as you've mentioned, and this case illustrates it really well, that would give you another insured in terms of where liability might be if the tenant did cause the fire like they did in this case. If they don't have a renter's insurance, you're not going to get much out of the tenant. If they do have insurance, you have that. So as a landlord, I think it does make sense for you to encourage your folks, instead of just saying, hey, you can get renter's insurance, walk them through and explain why it makes sense to do it.
Right. The other big thing I think that we also discovered on this is when the insurance checks started rolling in, I was surprised to see my name on the check as well as the bank's name. And so at that point in time, we had not switched our asset into an entity because we hadn't gotten permission, and since that time we've made some different changes, legal changes. But had it come in with our entity name and the bank's name, that could have also triggered a due on sale clause. Probably wouldn't have happened from everything I've learned, but it does expose you there too.
Yeah, good point. And then of course, as far as what you termed loss of rents insurance, that is not standard in an insurance policy. Most folks probably understand that, but if you're new to real estate investing, or you've just bought your first rental house and you have an insurance policy, if something were to happen and your tenant gets displaced for a month, 3 months, 6 months, unless you pay for a specific rider of loss of rents insurance, then that's not covered. They're going to fix the building, but they're not going to fix your tenant situation. So that's great gold advice as well. Anything else in hindsight that you would have done differently, or any lessons that you've taken forward from this happening?
Well, we do always try to put extra eyes on what's going on with the buildings. So, and we do regular routine inspections, making sure that people aren't smoking in the units, or not allowing trash and things like that to accumulate, particularly on the backside where they're hiding things. I mean, it's, most roofs have soffits, and so they oftentimes stack stuff up the building to kind of keep it out of the weather a little bit. But unfortunately, those are things that don't always do your building much good.
So, yeah, a lot of property managers do the drive-by, but aren't necessarily going in the backyard. So good stuff. Well, thanks, Randy. Thanks for sharing your Halloween horror story, and continued good investing to you.
Great. Thank you.
There's Randy Hubbs. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. More Halloween horror stories when we return. I'm your host, Robert Helms. This portion of the Real Estate Guys radio program is brought to you by International Coffee Farms, where you can own a parcel of land in your very own specialty coffee farm in Panama for as little as $15,000. Here's how it works. Deeded half-acre parcels entitled Specialty Coffee Farms in Boquete, Panama are turnkey managed professionally on your behalf by a team of local experts. Sustainable average income is estimated at 12%, and cash flow can begin within 12 to 15 months from the date of your parcel ownership. International Coffee Farms' mission is to own and operate specialty coffee farms that are economically, environmentally, and socially sustainable. As part of this mission, 20% of the gross profits of each farm is committed to a socially sustainable fund to improve the lives of the Panamanian coffee farm workers and their families. International Coffee Farms currently owns and operates 9 specialty coffee farms with half-acre parcels available for immediate ownership. To find out how you can become a coffee farm owner in Boquete, Panama, email coffee@realestateguysradio.com. That's coffee@realestateguysradio.com. Forbes rated Memphis the best cash flow market in the nation, and our good friend Terry Kerr at Mid-South Homebuyers has been the premier turnkey rental property provider in Memphis for over 13 years. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, Terry has renovated over 750 houses. Real Estate Guys listeners have snapped up hundreds. Discover what these satisfied investors already know. Mid-South's properties are completely renovated with a 1-year warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're affordable, well-managed, and easy to own. Perfect for beginning investors and veterans alike. Get in on the action. Contact Terry and his team via email at midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, heard every weekend on this great radio station all the time at realestateguysradio.com. And this time of year, our annual edition of Halloween Horror Stories. Before we get back to the dread, it's time to play Real Estate Trivia, your chance to win a prize by knowing today's Real Estate Trivia question. In just a minute, I'm going to give you a question that has something to do with real estate and, of course, Halloween in a Real Estate Guys kind of way. As soon as you hear the question and think you know the answer, send us your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Include your name and your mailing address along with the answer to the question, because if you're a winner, we're going to send you a copy of Rich Woman by Kim Kiyosaki, a great book, and the first person with the right answer gets it. Last week it was Ask the Guys, we asked this. TripAdvisor just came out with its list of best fine dining restaurants in the world. What city boasts the #1 restaurant? The answer is the village of Olstead, North Yorkshire in the UK, which is home of the Black Swan at Olstead. By the way, it is not only the #1 restaurant on TripAdvisor, but it happens to be the only pub in the village which has a population of less than 100 people. And because this is real estate trivia, they have rooms as well. 9 overnight rental units and amazing food. Here's our Halloween edition of Real Estate Trivia. In the classic movie Young Frankenstein, Gene Wilder plays Dr. Frederick Frankenstein, or as he pronounces it, Frankenstein, a lecturing physician at an American medical school. When he learns that he's inherited his family's estate after the death of his great-grandfather, Frederick travels to Europe to inspect the property. Sounds prudent. Here's our trivia question. In what country is it located? In what country is the estate of Frankenstein located in the funny movie Young Frankenstein? If you think you know or just want to take a guess, send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Include your name, the answer to the question, and your mailing address, because if you're the winner, you'll get a copy of Rich Woman by Kim Kiyosaki. That's today's Real Estate Trivia question. Our next shadowy shocker is called Out of Sight, Out of Your Mind. Let's say hello to real estate investor Sonia Lee. How are you, Sonia?
Hi, Robert.
Thanks for being here. I know you have a terrible, wonderful Halloween horror story. So you've had a lot of successful investments, but this one didn't go so well. Tell us about it.
Yes, definitely didn't go too well. I purchased a multifamily property near the Cleveland Clinic. So it was located in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yep.
And at the time, I'm from California, but at the time my sister was teaching at Kent University, and California prices were very high.
Yep.
And so I thought I'd venture out and invest in something outside of California.
Sure.
So it was a 24-unit multifamily property. It was a C-class, and I thought it was very strategically located because the clinic was very nearby and they were expanding like crazy.
Yep.
I had a good property manager that was referred to me, so everything seemed to be great. Great cap rate, high income. And so I took my mind off of it, just trusting the property manager to do the right thing, and things kind of chugged along for a little bit. But I noticed the revenue started going down and the money wasn't in the bank so much. So went out there and tried to talk to the property manager, have her revive it, but she just could not perform, and she was overburdened and she wasn't performing. So hired another property manager, kind of the similar story. And then so I decided that I met this charity organization that houses people who are from the criminal system. So they're not exactly halfway house, but they help people get reacquainted into the society by providing housing and such.
Sure.
They had funding, so I thought this was a great, brilliant idea on my part. So I entered into a contract with them, and they were going to master lease the property.
Well, let's stop there for a minute, because this can be a great solution, a master lease where you have a single client, if you will, instead of 24 individual tenants to manage. You just have one tenant, and they handle who's going to be in the rooms and when. Because of the program like this, people might be in it 30 days, might be in it 3 years. So sounds like a great idea so far.
Yeah, it was a great idea until they lost their funding.
Oh.
And so they couldn't pay rent either. So again, I had to kick them out and try to find other tenants, try to find property manager. Meanwhile, my sister moved out of the area, and so I had nobody there.
Wow.
And it was it was a C class, so it was not the greatest neighborhood.
Sure.
And so I started getting break-ins, rumors of drug activities, and things were not going well. Basically, long story short, people started breaking in. They even started doing things like stealing copper pipe in the building,
wow.
which I didn't even think was possible.
Oh, they can figure out a way.
I had to hire a security guard 24/7 to patrol the building, which was very expensive. And it was just a big, huge headache. It was far from me. I couldn't do much, and just every day I would get bad news. I couldn't even leave it. I couldn't even just board it up and abandon the building because I purchased it. It's my building. My name's associated with it. There's criminal activities going on. Wow. So anyway, that's my big nightmare horror story. I learned so much.
Well, let's talk about that part of it, right? Because it's always about the lesson and what we learned. So knowing what you now know, what would you do differently?
Well, the biggest lesson, which I abide by religiously, is don't trust your property manager 100%. You always have to monitor them.
Yes.
Second lesson is that you can claim a lot of things through your property insurance. So the security guard that I hired, I took some arguments and debates with the insurance claim adjuster, but I did get bulk of that money back. And also, I was able to renegotiate with the bank and kind of work out a payment, or what do you call that when you can reduce your principal?
So principal reduction.
Principal reduction.
They will negotiate off it. Usually not on a single family home, but sometimes that's happened. But certainly in a commercial property, the lender is your partner, and you have a situation together. You and your lender have this problem. So
Right. So I did give them some upfront capital payback, and in negotiation, they did reduce some principal that I owe them.
Yep.
So I learned that there's also people who can help you do that with the bank too. So people who have relationship with bank and know how to talk to them can help you. So there's people out there who could help you get out of trouble, but obviously the most important thing is not to get into trouble.
Those are great lessons. Now, I know it hasn't stopped you from investing out of the area. You're still open to going in markets where you don't have a sister that lives there, but,
Right.
but what are some of the things you do have to think about if you're going to invest outside of the area that you are primarily either you live in or work in?
I think the most important thing is because you don't know the market, the geographical area as much as you do in your own neighborhood, you rely on other people's expertise. So at the time, my thought process was that Cleveland Clinic, which is a huge hospital, was expanding like crazy.
Right.
And so it's just a matter of time that this land that I was buying was going to become valuable. Well, I'm from California and there isn't land around, but in Cleveland, there's land.
There's still some land.
So they decide to go north and your property's in south. It really doesn't do you any good.
Yep.
So I think if I had talked to somebody who works for Cleveland or know what their expansion plan is, I would have known better that that's not likely scenario, that my property would have been in their acquisition target.
Right.
And just understanding how people are in that neighborhood, what kind of tenant profile, that's very important. And just criminal activities in the neighborhood, just all the more reason to look into it deeply because you just don't know how that system works in that community.
Absolutely. Well, we pay dearly for these lessons, but if we get the lesson, it can often be worth it. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you.
There's Sonia Lee. It's Halloween horror stories, things that went desperately wrong, and the lessons we can learn. This next bit of weird wickedness is called The Chilling Chop Saw Massacre. Let's meet the amazing Michael Mente. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're doing great today, but things were not always so great.
No, they
Tell
were
us
not.
your Halloween horror story.
So I had an eviction, which could be a horror story in and of itself, but came to look at the apartment. It was a second floor over one of our mini market tenants. Pull up to the front of the building, and before I even get out of my truck, I look over and I can't believe my eyes.
Uh-oh.
It was a hot summer day, and evidently the mini market tenant thought it would be a good idea to fire up the chop saw and cut a hole in the side of our brick building and sloppily insert a second window AC unit into his mini market.
As you do. Okay,
Exactly.
My goodness. So just paint the picture here. This is a retail downstairs and apartments upstairs, and you're not there to look at the retail because this is a tenant you have, just got a mini mart and everything's good. And all of a sudden, the tenant has taken it under their own advice to completely change your building.
Exactly. I mean, this is a brick building, so you put a hole in it, it's never going to be the same. And it wasn't a nice, neat hole. It was savagely, I'm thinking, Jason has fired up the, not chainsaw, but chop saw, and just went to work on this thing. So the bricks along the top, there wasn't anything put in to keep them from falling down. As you insert a hole into a brick building, the bricks on top want to fall in. The sides are, it's not even a straight line. It's kind of curving and things. So I wasn't exactly sure what to do. So I made sure to give myself a few hours to cool down and
No pun
come
intended.
up with come up with a strategy before I called the guy.
All right. First of all, that is smart thinking, right? When we're in the heat of the moment, when we see that and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get my hands on that person, better to just be cool, be calm, think it through. So that's good. But here's the issue, right? As a landlord, you have some liability issues around your physicality of your structure. And here's a guy who has not done, obviously, a A1 contractor job, has just kind of probably done it himself with the hammer. And now you've got some liability. But even more so, there could be a fundamental value challenge with this. So what happened next? How did you approach the tenant? And tell us about what happened.
So it took a couple hours, and as much as I wanted to be permanently offended that he'd, forever altered the look of that building. I mean, it doesn't matter if he leaves and I patch it back in. In a certain sense, a brick building's never going to be the same.
Right.
So I just had to get over that and say, from here, I feel like the best course forward would be to collect a hefty security deposit in addition to what I already had, and obviously make it very clear that any more alterations would have to go through me first and would be grounds for removal. So gave him a call, and I wasn't sure. I mean, I assumed he was going to be very defensive because, after you cut a hole in somebody's building, you should be defensive. Kind of laid that out, and he was amicable to it, and I feel like it saved the situation. He's still a tenant, today. That was last year sometime, and I feel like we saved the situation, got a hefty deposit to protect ourselves when he leaves if we want to put it back in. The other thing is we had some professionals come out and touch it up so that it looked presentable and like somebody actually cared when they did it, and he got to pay that bill. So that's
well,
how
that
we moved
sounds
forward.
like the perfect solution. So he helped rectify it to the degree that it's now not a health and safety issue and it looks nicer, but you've collected enough deposit, increased deposit, that should you decide you do, once he moves out, want to completely change it back, then you could do that. So I think it's a great workaround. Let's talk about the lesson, right? This is an odd one. I mean, this isn't something you would have thought of, and no doubt there's some provision in your lease that says, hey, tenant, you can't do this, but that doesn't mean, one, they read it, and two, they understand it.
Right. This person, I think English was their second language, so they spoke great English, but again, as I was going through the lease, I will definitely hit that harder with the next tenant. So we went over that provision. It's just impossible to understand where some people come from. I mean, I still can't believe that it happened, but yeah, hit it harder, and now we have a real life example to
There you go.
give somebody.
That's a great point, Michael, because that's the whole purpose of Halloween Horror Stories, is we learn about something that went wrong, but then what do we do moving forward? So now when you're sitting with a prospective tenant on a retail lease, you can say, now this paragraph, 17B, I mean, alteration of the building. Obviously, you wouldn't alter the building, but let me tell you a story. Right now, you've got the story. And if they would have, because I'm sure the tenant wasn't malicious about it, wasn't figuring you'd never come by. They just thought, hey, it's hot in here. We'll just throw in another air conditioner. We're paying for the electricity. Who's going to care?
Right.
Didn't think through, and tenants don't always think through. So now you have that story, which is great. But the other part of the story that's important is you're in the property management business. You've owned a lot of different types of real estate, and different tenants have different profiles. A retail tenant thinks differently than a other commercial or office tenant thinks differently than a residential tenant. And I think having the more stories that you have like this, the stronger you are as a manager, and of course, not only for your own portfolio, but for the folks that you serve.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We're sorry to hear it happen, but we're glad we got the lesson.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's Halloween Horror Stories today, things that went wrong and the lessons we can learn on the Real Estate Guys radio program. Are you achieving everything you want in life? What if there was a time-tested way for you to get everything you've dreamed of? The most successful people in life set goals and keep themselves accountable. But how? The good news is that it's not rocket science. You too can learn the skills and unleash the motivation that will create success in your life. And now is the time. Hi, this is Robert Helms, and I'd like to personally invite you to attend Create Your Future, the 2018 Goals Retreat, January 5th to 7th in beautiful Lake Las Vegas, Nevada. This unique weekend event has been called phenomenal, inspirational, and life-changing by the hundreds of people that have attended. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com and click events, or call 888-489-7723, extension 18. Get your life back on track physically, spiritually, and financially. Attend the 2018 Goals Retreat on the first weekend of the new year. Click events at realestateguysradio.com to register. This is no dress rehearsal. Live the life you were meant to. Visit realestateguysradio.com or call 888-489-7723, extension 18 today.
Hi, this is Patrick Donahoe, CEO of Paradigm Life. Wall Street and banks spend billions of dollars per year in advertising with the goal to convince you that they are the solution. But take a look around. None of their advice has worked. If you're listening to this, odds are pretty good that you're already a real estate investor, or at least becoming one. So why do you do it? Is it to hedge inflation, the tax benefits, or maybe it's to get your money away from Wall Street? It's because of these benefits and so many more that I created the Real Estate Investor's Guide to the Perpetual Wealth Strategy. When you combine successful real estate investing with the perpetual wealth strategy, you have the recipe for what has helped the wealthy to establish their financial well-being for decades. You can download the Real Estate Investor's Guide to the Perpetual Wealth Strategy today by clicking the Resources tab on the Real Estate Guys Radio homepage. Don't wait, go download it now.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. This week's horrifying edition is Halloween Horror Stories, our 2017 list of things that went wrong, and great stories. Our final gruesome story is called A Killer of a Deal. Let's meet BJ and Pauline Johnson. They can share their terrible story of woe. How are you guys?
We're doing great. Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, absolutely. It's great to have you guys in the program. Now, you guys are a couple that are investing in real estate together, and you have a story, I believe, that starts with the need for a 1031 tax-deferred exchange. Tell us what happened.
Yes, that's exactly right. We had a 1031 exchange, and we moved from a fourplex, and we're moving into a 12-unit apartment building. We saw all the bells and whistles. It was exactly what we were looking for at the right time, and it just looked like a wonderful place that would fit all of the description of things that we needed. But then as we pull that veil back, that's when we find out more information and where due diligence comes into play.
Okay, so let me stop for just a minute there, just in case, no investor left behind. If you haven't done a 1031 tax-deferred exchange, in the United States, it's one of the tools that allows us to take our equity and our profit, if you will, forward and not be taxed on it. Rather than sell your fourplex, pay the tax, and invest the difference, this allows you to put all that money, or most of it, as much as you choose, right, subject to the rules, into another property. But when you do an exchange, it brings up a couple of things, and one of which is a timeline. You have to identify a property within a certain amount of time, and then you have to close on it. So in most cases, we want to try to identify what we call the up-leg property, which is the property we're buying, before we close on the first property. But that's always a game of timing and parties and all that kind of stuff. So you guys have a fourplex. It's been working for you. You figured out a way we can sell that by a 12-unit building, which is going to be increasing your portfolio and so forth, and all sounds good. What happened next?
So what happened next, so we got the property, and we identified it from one of our real estate agents who was a close friend. And through that, we began to do the due diligence process of kind of seeing exactly what was, in the building. So we got the inspection done and realized there was a lot of work that needed to be done inside the building. So, all right, we were okay with that. And then as I was walking the property, one day when the real estate agent wasn't there, I just want to get a feel for the property. And then I ran into a maintenance man who had done a lot of work there and had got the true story about what was going on inside the building. He told me that in the building that we had just agreed to, that the person who was, in charge of the building, the property manager who was actually operating under a lease agreement from the owners, that he was taking care of all the maintenance and is supposed to be doing all the right things by it, was recently shot in one of the units of the building that we had agreed to purchase.
Nice.
So we have a murder mystery as well as.
Wow, and he died.
He died there inside.
Oh my gosh! And was this disclosed to you?
This was not disclosed to us. We just found out the information by walking the property and running into the maintenance man. So we're glad we saw him that day.
There's a lesson there. So obviously, in most states and in many countries, there is a duty to disclose what you know or should be able to know, and both the principals and the real estate agents involved have that duty in different degrees in different places around the world. But in this case, very common that something that happened on the property is not readily disclosed, but you find out through another source. Now, at this point, you haven't closed yet.
No.
Okay. So take us through the process of discovering this challenge and what you guys went through mentally to say, do we still want the building?
Yeah, it was one of those things we had to really, double check, and especially understanding, is there anything else on the property that might be going on, and the tenant mix, because the guy, he was involved in some extracurricular activities, I would say. So it involved a lot of the tenants that he was allowing into the building as well. So we were not only inheriting his murder, but also everybody that he allowed in to kind of help him cover up some of the things that he was doing on the side.
Wow.
So knowing all that, we were able to have better negotiating with the people, and got the rock bottom price of what they could actually offer. Even throughout when we went through the final processes, we found out there were more things that were going on in terms of not paying the HOA dues, and there were additional liens on the property. So we were able to use that in our negotiations to be able to get the absolute best price for the property. We still believed in the property, but we didn't know all the stuff that was going to happen going into the property once we found out.
Hence your appearance on Halloween Horror Stories. But here's what's great about this is that it didn't, well, I won't say it didn't shake you, but you didn't give up. You didn't throw in the towel. You said, hey, there's going to be problems, and we always have problems in property. That's one of the things we're hired to do as landlords, is to solve those problems. And it still seems like there's enough, meat on the bone, if you will, and this gave you a chance to negotiate. So that's great. Now, today you own the property.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, we do.
And how's it working?
It's going well. We did inherit some no leases and different things like that, but we were able to work through that by making sure that we had great property management in place to actually help us problem solve and go through some of the issues that we were inheriting. So really just knowing what skills and what things will help you through the mix is what's most important and what we've learned most through some of these.
Yeah, the property manager helped us. She put out immediately, if the people wanted to stay, they had to sign a lease, and they had to go through all the proper channels of what she does in terms of clearing the tenants. So we got rid of a lot of folks that way. Wasn't great for cash flow for the first couple months, but we'd rather have the right people in the building as opposed to just anybody there. So we worked through that. Most of the tenants are gone from the original group, and we've gotten some really good tenants in there now. So we're out of the 12 units, we have 7 of them filled. We completed the renovation. We actually purchased the property in April of this year.
Okay.
Completed the renovations for the most part in June of this year. And then so we're about 7 out of 12 currently. So we're moving in the right direction. We still have some work to do, but we believe in the property and believe in the project.
Excellent. So now let's talk about kind of the lessons learned, that knowing what you now know, having gone through this, what might you do in a future transaction? What are the things that are now going to be on your checklist?
In a future transaction, I think it's very important for you to be able to be there on the property yourself, to be able to see the things that people can't tell you. And it's good to have kind of an inside man. So that maintenance guy really helped us out in a lot of ways. And so being able to get the inside scoop and being able to maintain someone like that on the inside so you know truly what's going on with your property, that helps a lot.
And also just we had a chance, everybody's philosophy might be different, but we wanted to kind of meet the people that were there in the building. So having a chance to talk to them to get their take on it as well, I thought was really helpful so they can have a personal touch and we can address the issues that were going on with them at the time. And also just having a good team in place. The property manager was huge for us. Even people that are investing out of state, to have a good property management can really alleviate a lot of the stresses associated with real estate investing. And also having a good lawyer, he was able to find all the stuff with the title search and everything else that we had no idea that was going on. So just having a good team in place is one thing that we really learned, that there's no substitute. Even if you have to pay a little bit more, you get what you pay for.
All right. Well, I know it hasn't been a ton of fun, but my goodness, look at what you've done. You've got a great property now. Things are going well. Anything else that you've learned from this lesson or that the listeners should know?
Well, just at a heart level, we like to create a place that we would feel comfortable where our kids could actually come. So if we keep that at the forefront, then as we move forward in different properties, we're able to address the issues with that in mind so that we're creating a safe space for everyone else to live and enjoy.
And also, please don't ever skip any steps in the due diligence process. That is huge. There were times I was tempted to kind of, it's okay. We inspected most of the units. No, you need to go through every detail, dot every I, cross every T in the whole process because you never know what might be lurking in those details.
Absolutely. Great stuff. And now especially because you guys have been landlords and owners and now are getting into real estate syndication, raising money to do deals, it's even more critical. You might in your own account say, hey, I'm going to overlook an inspection because I know the property or know the neighborhood. But when it's other people's money, you really have to hold it to that higher level. So it sounds like you guys have a great base. And congratulations on a Halloween horror story.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. There is this year's crop of Halloween horror stories.
It's always good stuff. Again, you just have to appreciate people that are willing to come out and be honest about the things they went through and share openly about the lessons. It's great. I mean, and the thing is, I hope people are encouraged and not discouraged. And that's really the most important thing. You realize that everybody goes through it. It's part of the process. It's like being married. Nobody has a perfect marriage. Everybody has their ups and downs. It's like having children, right? Nobody gets perfect children. You have your ups and downs. Pick it. It's like whatever you're doing in your career, you have ups and downs. And so the key is just getting the lessons and feeling like, hey, I'm not alone. There's not something wrong with me because I had something happen. And there are strategies you can use. We learned a lot of them today, things you can do to mitigate the risks that are part and parcel of being a real estate investor.
In my case, I've been doing this so long, I kind of have the idea that I've probably seen what there is to see. Yet today's stories were amazing and new. So you can't learn too much, but just don't expect to learn at all. However, every lesson that you learn is probably going to save you time, money, and energy.
And to Russ's point, context is huge. When we first started doing this, we saw this shift in people's awareness of problems. In fact, I remember specifically we were doing a Halloween Horror Story event, and the next day we had another real estate event, and a guy showed up and he goes, "Guess what happened to me this morning? One of my units got completely flooded. I've already got the first Halloween Horror Story for next year." So he was excited about it. Not that it wasn't a bad thing that happened. It is, but immediately his mind didn't go to, oh no. It went to, what can I learn?
Well, and that's really important because, Kiyosaki says all the time, to succeed, you have to fail faster, fail forward. And it's really counterintuitive to think to succeed, you need to fail. But his point is there's lessons when things go wrong. And so you need to push yourself and then have those experiences. I think the important part about what you just talked about, Robert, is the mindset. There is a state you can be in where you are resourceful or you're defeated. And when adversity comes, if you recognize it for what it is, an opportunity to learn, to grow, and you access that resourceful part of your brain that helps you find the answers and the solutions and attack the problem with hope and proactivity versus just sitting down and feeling like you're whipped and not being able to, that fog that comes over your head when you just don't know what to do. One of the things we really work to do with this episode every year is to give people that opportunity again to realize, hey, this is part of it, and it's it can be a fun part of it. You're going to have some war stories to laugh at. Maybe not always fun when you're going right through it,
right.
But if you can keep your chin up and you can keep your eyes on the horizon, and then you keep that resourceful part of your brain operating, you get through it a lot quicker, a lot better, and then hopefully you give back and you share with the world the things you learned, as these people have, so that other people coming along behind you get a chance to benefit from the lesson you paid full price for. They get a discount.
Russ, you and I had some similar thoughts, and being proactive was one of the ones, because a major benefit of learning these things is you get to incorporate them. You get to actually move them into your program. You're buying a new property. This can affect what due diligence you employ simply because you now know, wow, that could be a problem too. I better look.
I'm definitely going to think about trees differently moving forward, among other things. All right, well, big thanks to all the amazing investors who took their time and shared their Halloween horror stories with us. Your mission is to get the lesson and make yourself a better investor for what they've been through. And then in your career, who knows, maybe next time we'll have you on Halloween Horror Stories. Have a happy Halloween. Until next week, go out and make some equity happen.
This episode of the Real Estate Guys radio show is brought to you by Paradigm Life. Powerful cash management strategies using life insurance. Learn more at beyourbank.com. Mid-South Home Buyers. Low-cost, turnkey cash flow properties in Memphis, Tennessee. Corporate Direct. Asset protection strategies for real estate investors from attorney and Rich Dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Find these and other great companies under the Resources tab at realestateguysradio.com. To learn how you can expose your product or service to the Real Estate Guys audience, call 888-489-7723 extension 4. That's 888-489-7723 extension 4. Or use the feedback page at realestateguysradio.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Real Estate Guys Radio Show.